Dear friends, welcome to this sacred moment of reflection where we gather not merely to hear a story but to let our hearts be touched by the gentle hand of God's providence. Imagine a world where the smallest acts of love ripple across generations, where a quiet boy from a humble suburb becomes a beacon of hope for millions. This is not a tale of grandeur, but of grace, a grace that whispers in the ordinary and roars in the eternal. Today, let us journey together into the life of a man who became Pope Leo XIV, not because he sought greatness, but because he dared to love with a heart wide open. Will you walk with me? In the beginning, there was a family, simple, hardworking, and bound by an unbreakable thread of faith. In the small town of Dalton, just south of Chicago, the Privis family lived a life unmarked by wealth but rich in love. John, the eldest son, and Robert, his younger brother, grew up in a home where the rhythm of life was set by prayer. Their father, a factory worker, bore the weight of long hours, while their mother, a part-time bookseller, wove stories of God's love into their evenings. Each Sunday, the family walked to their parish church where the scent of incense and the warmth of community became as familiar as their own hearth. As it is written in Proverbs 22 verse 6, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." The Privists embodied this truth. Their home was a sanctuary where faith was not a rule but a living breath. Robert, even as a boy, seemed to carry this faith in his quiet steps. While John raced through fields or tossed a ball, Robert lingered in the church, dusting pews or arranging hymnals. They called him the church boy, not out of jest, but with affection, for his heart found peace in the stillness of God's house. Yet, this was no idyllic tale. Life in Dalton was not easy. The Privists faced the struggles of many working families, bills to pay, winters to endure, and dreams often deferred. But in their hardships, they found strength. Their mother would often say, "God does not promise an easy road, but he walks it with us." These words planted a seed in Robert's heart, a seed that would grow into a life of service. As Robert grew, so did the world around him. The 1960s were a time of change, of voices rising and dreams clashing. Yet, in the midst of this, Robert heard a different voice, one soft, persistent, and divine. "Follow me," it said, as Jesus once called his disciples by the Sea of Galilee, Matthew 4 verse 19. For Robert, this call did not come in a blaze of light, but in the quiet moments of prayer, in the pages of scripture, and in the faces of those he served. After high school, while his peers chased careers in engineering or business, Robert chose a path less traveled. He entered the Augustinian Seminary in Michigan, a decision that surprised many. He could have been anything, his classmates whispered. But Robert knew that the anything the world offered paled before the everything God promised. His was not a choice of ambition, but of surrender. In the seminary, Robert's intellect shone, but it was his heart that left a mark. He devoured theology, finding in the words of Augustine and Aquinas a map to God's love. Yet, he was no mere scholar. During summers, he worked with the poor, teaching children to read or bringing food to families in need. "The gospel is not a book to be studied," he once wrote to John, "but a life to be lived." These words echoed the spirit of Matthew 25 verse 40, "Whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." No journey of faith is without its trials, and Robert's was no exception. In the early 1980s, as he prepared to take his final vows, a shadow fell over the Provost family. Their father suffered a severe accident at the factory, leaving him bedridden for months. The burden fell heavily on their mother and John, who shouldered the family's needs. Far away in the seminary, Robert felt the ache of distance. Letters were his only bridge, but they could not carry the weight of his longing to help. One night, unannounced, Robert returned home. In the dim light of their kitchen, he sat with his mother and spoke words that broke her heart. "If you need me to stay, I will leave the seminary." His voice trembled, torn between his love for his family and his call to God. His mother, her eyes brimming with tears, took his hand and said, "Robert, your heart belongs to God. If you stay, you will never be whole." In that moment, Robert understood the cost of discipleship. As Jesus said, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily," Luke 9 verse 23. Robert returned to the seminary carrying not only his own cross but also the love of a mother who had set him free. Her words became the cornerstone of his vocation, a reminder that true love sometimes means letting go. Robert's journey as a priest led him far from the familiar streets of Dalton to the rugged landscapes of Latin America. Sent as a missionary, he walked among the poor, those whose lives were marked by scarcity yet whose spirits burned with resilience. In villages where clean water was a luxury and schools were a dream, Robert found his true calling. He did not come to preach from a pedestal but to listen, to share, and to serve. As he wrote to his brother John, "Today I ate one meal, but I heard 100 cries. In their voices I hear God." These years shaped Robert in ways no classroom could. He learned that faith is not a lofty ideal but a daily act of love. He built wells with villagers, taught children under the shade of trees, and sat with mothers who wept for their hungry children. In these moments, he lived the words of Isaiah 61 verse 1, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor." Robert's heart became a mirror of Christ's, reflecting compassion to those the world had forgotten. His work did not go unnoticed. Over time, he rose through the ranks, first as a provincial superior, then as a bishop. Yet, titles meant little to him. When he was consecrated a bishop, he chose a simple wooden cross over ornate jewels, a symbol of his commitment to the least. John, reading his brother's letters, marveled at how Robert remained unchanged. He could have sought comfort, John later said, but he chose the dust of the poor instead. On a spring day in May, the eyes of the world turned to Rome. White smoke rose from the Sistine Chapel, signaling the election of a new pope. In a modest home in Chicago, John Prevost sat before his television, his heart pounding. The name announced, Robert Francis Prevost, seemed to stop time. His brother, the boy who once hid in their parish church to read scripture, was now Pope Leo XIV. "I couldn't believe it," John later recalled. "I kept asking, is this real? My Robert." The choice of the name Leo was no accident. It echoed the legacy of Pope Leo XIII, a champion of the poor and a voice for justice, and it carried the humility of Francis, the saint of simplicity. Robert, now Leo XIV, stepped onto the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica not as a conqueror, but as a servant. His first words were a prayer, "Lord, make me an instrument of your peace." The crowd fell silent, sensing that this was no ordinary moment. In the days that followed, the world learned of Robert's life, his roots in a working-class family, his years among the poor, and his quiet devotion. Yet, for John, the man in the white cassock was still his little brother, the one who once saved his pocket money to buy their mother a rosary. "He's the Pope," John said, "but to me he's Robert who never forgot where he came from." From the outset, Pope Leo XIV set a tone of humility. He shunned the grandeur of the apostolic palace, choosing a simple room in the Vatican guest house. He replaced elaborate ceremonies with moments of connection. A cup of tea shared with visitors, a wooden table instead of a throne. "Treat everyone as family," he told his staff, echoing the spirit of Galatians 6 verse 10. "Let us do good to all people, especially to those who belong to the family of believers." His first public act as Pope was not a grand proclamation but a quiet visit to a children's hospital. There, he met a boy with cerebral palsy. Without words, Leo knelt, kissed the child's forehead, and prayed in silence. The image of this moment spread across the globe, not because it was dramatic, but because it was true. It was the gospel lived, a reminder of Jesus' words, "Let the little children come to me." Matthew 19 verse 14. Leo's homilies were simple yet profound, rooted in scripture and alive with stories. He spoke of the Good Samaritan, urging the church to be a field hospital for the wounded. He quoted Micah. As Pope Leo XIV, Robert Prevost carried into the Vatican a gift rarer than gold: the ability to listen. In a world that races forward, shouting for attention, he chose to pause to hear the unspoken cries of the weary, the young, and the forgotten. His audiences were not mere formalities but encounters of the heart. To the youth, he said, "You are not the future of the church. You are its beating heart today." To the marginalized, he offered not just words but presence, sitting with refugees, prisoners, and the sick, as if they were his own kin. His brother John, watching from afar, saw in Leo the same Robert who once knelt in their parish church, listening to the silence of God. He doesn't just hear words, John said. He hears souls. This gift of listening became the cornerstone of Leo's papacy. In his first encyclical, he wrote, "The Church must be a symphony of voices, where even the softest whisper is heard. For in the quiet, God speaks." These words echoed Psalm 46 verse 10. "Be still, and know that I am God." Yet, Leo's mission was not without challenges. The world, fractured by division and doubt, demanded answers. Some called for reform, others for tradition. Leo navigated these waters with a shepherd's care, neither rushing nor retreating. "Faith is not a race," he said in a homily, "but a pilgrimage. We walk together, hand in hand, toward the heart of Christ." His words recalled the unity Jesus prayed for in John 17 verse 21, "that all of them may be one." Through dialogue, prayer, and acts of mercy, Leo sought to build bridges where walls had stood. In Chicago, John followed his brother's journey with quiet pride. One morning, he visited their old parish church, where a small photo of Pope Leo XIV now hung near the altar. Standing there, John felt the weight of their shared past. The games they played, the prayers they whispered, and the mother who taught them love. "I don't see a pope," John said softly. "I see my brother, who never stopped being himself." Dear friends, as we come to the close of this story, let us pause and reflect. The life of Pope Leo XIV is not a tale of triumph in the world's eyes, but a testament to the power of a heart surrendered to God. From the streets of Dalton to the halls of the Vatican, Robert Prevost walked a path marked by love, humility, and listening. He reminds us that greatness is not found in titles or power, but in the courage to love as Christ loves without counting the cost. In 1 Corinthians 13 verse 13, St. Paul writes, "And now these three remain, faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love." Leo XIV lives this truth. Each day, he kneels before the Blessed Sacrament, prays for the world, and steps into the crowd to embrace the stranger, the child, and the broken. He is a shepherd who smells of his sheep, a brother who never forgets his roots, and a disciple who carries the cross with joy. Back in Chicago, John Prevost keeps a small keepsake, a rosary Robert gave their mother long ago. It is worn from years of prayer, a symbol of a family's faith and a brother's fidelity. Robert didn't become Pope to change the world, John says. He became Pope to love it. And that's enough. So, my dear friends, what does this story ask of us? It invites us to listen to God, to one another, to the quiet stirrings of our hearts. It calls us to love, not with grand gestures, but with the small, faithful acts that ripple across eternity. And it reminds us that God chooses not the mighty, but the ready, those who, like Robert, say yes to his call, no matter how humble their beginnings. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If this story has touched your heart, share it with others, that they too may find hope in the ordinary miracles of God's grace. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and let us continue to explore the wonders of faith together. May the peace of